So has Kim Jong-un decided to back down? Did the Chinese leadership tell his envoy a few hard facts? To help us figure out whether North Korea is changing course or not, we have Andray Abrahamian with us on Skype from Beijing. Andray is executive director of Choson Exchange, an NGO that aims to bring North Korea out of isolation by partnering with young North Koreans to share business, economic, and legal knowledge. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
So the North Korean envoy, Vice Marshal Chae Ryong-hae, an army man, met President Xi Jinping and other Chinese leaders. He didn't look very happy during the photo ops. Is it your impression that Chae's visit reinforced the relationship with China, or did it instead show some of the cracks?
I think the fundamental relationship between China and North Korea remains the same. And we tend to read too much into this visit, for example, or media statements earlier in the year. The basic structure is unchanged between these two countries.
So if the relationship is essentially the same, what did they talk about? Was there any progress made?
Well, I think there's progress, certainly in the sense that the Chinese probably would have gotten assurances that there's not going to be any more trouble in the near future. The North Koreans would have come, in my opinion, looking to make sure that the squeeze on banking is going to drop off, that there won't be continued efforts to make international transactions more difficult for North Korean banks. Of course, it's impossible to really know what took place between the two sides, but I think that was the impetus for Choe's visit, to make sure that that banking is going to continue less hindered than it looked like it might have been in the last couple of weeks.
Xi Jinping is going to meet President Obama next weekend and South Korea's President Park Geun-hye later in June. Is the North afraid China will make a deal behind its back?
I think that's probably a reasonable concern. Again, it's all speculation, but one has to think that the North Koreans were a little surprised by the degree to which China has cooperated with both the crafting of the last round of sanctions and then imposing some restrictions on banking transactions. So you can understand how they'd want to get out ahead of potentially any further cooperation between China and the United States.
There seemed to be movement on something else as well. A few days after Chae left, the North made its announcement on Kaesong, the industrial complex. Coincidence?
It's difficult to know if that is coincidence or not. It's the kind of offer that I think everybody realized the South Koreans were going to ignore. They're not in the mood to talk about Kaesong right now. So it's the kind of gesture that it was easy for the North Koreans to make at this point, probably recognizing that they wouldn't have to follow through on talks about Kaesong at the moment.
Well, as of today, South Korea says the offer of visits to Kaesong is a bad one. You yourself tweeted that you were disappointed. Why? Some have argued that Pyongyang is suspicious of Kaesong as a kind of Trojan horse, but instead of soldiers that has brought subversive ideas and goods to seduce the North Korean workers at Kaesong and their families. What do you think about this theory?
Well, I think the thing to understand that in the North Korean leadership, there are divergent opinions on a range of issues. We tend to see North Korea as a monolith of decision-making, but that's not true. A debate really does take place at the top levels. And so there are some people, conservatives we could call them in the North Korean context, who hated Kaesong from the beginning, always saw it as subversive, as a Trojan horse. And there are others who tended to see the upsides. So I think if you see North Korean decision-making in that context, with that sort of framework, you could see recent events as a victory for conservative forces. They get to close down this potential and long-term problem.
Well, we'll see how it all shakes out. Andray, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for taking the time.
Andray Abrahamian is executive director of Choson Exchange, an NGO aimed at long-term development of relations between North Korea and the outside. You can learn more about him on our experts page.
U.S. airwaves, a global channel of uncompromising stories. World news, documentaries, entertainment, and culture. Link TV, connecting you to the world. For more information, visit linktv.org.